It's time for America to get informed on its history as well as its politics. According to the Smithsonian, only about half of the U.S. adults could name the three branches of government. But when somebody is asked about Brad Pitt's current relationship status, almost anybody can answer, especially children. Educate yourself on the real world. Only 18% of 8th graders were proficient or above in U.S. history. About 1 in 4 Americans can name more than one of the first 5 amendments. 40% of the American population doesn't know anything at all about politics. Only 43% of people can correctly identify who President Hoover is. A 2007 test that was issued randomly to colleges found that the average score on an American civics test was only 55%. This was issued to American colleges. 49% of the population believe that the president can suspend the Constitution under his own sole authority. Only 54% of people know that the power to declare war belongs to Congress. Now I'm going to show you a graph of the very poor voter turnout rate for the 2014 general election by age group. As you can see, for the ages of 65 to 74, the graph skyrockets. That's because they like to keep themselves informed on news. For all the other age groups, it just plummets, unfortunately. Unfortunately, these percentages haven't gotten any better, not even for the very recent 2016 election, one that was very controversial over the entire United States, still didn't receive more than 50% in all age groups. Educate yourself on the real world. History helps us to understand other countries, as well as how to communicate with them. This helps us to form good public relations. If you're an informed citizen, then you can make an informed decision when you're casting your vote. This doesn't make you a part of the problem. History continuously repeats itself, so if we know our history, we can know our future. I mean, look at how many times France has had a revolution. I think that we know where their future is. Knowing your history can also tell you what your rights are as an American citizen. Thus, knowing your amendments and knowing that you can own certain things. 30% of people that were asked reported that they inform themselves at least once a day on the daily news. And here's a graph showing what news sources people preferred the most. Of course, 30% inform themselves once a day. It does decline a little bit throughout afterwards, for twice a day or more than twice a day. But 30% is not a terrible number. It could be worse. Educate yourself on the real world. Imagine that you weren't keeping up to date with your history. What if somebody asked you why you owned a gun? Say they told you weren't even allowed to own a gun. Would you simply accept this and not even try to defend yourself in your own home if the situation arose? Now let's take this a step further. So you already didn't know your amendments. Now say that you haven't been keeping up to date with your politics either. Do you know whether you're able to take a gun onto any premise or not? This is when it becomes a real problem. Educate yourself on the real world. Here are the steps to being well informed. 1. Know your American history. This means you need to know your amendments, your Bill of Rights especially, because those are the most important ones to keep in mind. Secondly, have at least a basic knowledge of world history, so this way you can understand how to communicate with those people from other countries a little better, and we're not rising to judgments instantly. Thirdly, understand what your basic rights are. As stated previously, know your amendments. And number 4, keep up to date with current events and politics, and read from multiple different sources. Don't just read from the mass media. Number 5, as stated previously, don't listen to what the mass media tells you, because they often lie. Educate yourself on the real world. Don't just simply tell yourself that you don't need to know your history, because you need to have at least a basic knowledge of it. Memorize the amendments and the Bill of Rights. This way you understand what your specific history is, and what your amendments are, what you can own and what you can't, and what you need to know for your rights. Also, make sure that you download a news app on your phone that automatically updates you on all of the current events that happen daily. This way you keep yourself very well informed and you know what's going on in your country as well as all the other countries in the world. Thank you for listening, and keep yourself informed, America. Educate yourself on the real world.